And welcome back, everybody. On this episode of the Rugby Review, we're going to be going through round 17 of the United Rugby Championship, or the URC. This is the second to last round, or the penultimate round, of the regular season before we go into the quarterfinals and the playoffs. And so without further ado, let's take a look at round 17's game schedule. And the game schedule is as followed. So on May 8th, there were two games played. The first game was between Glasgow and Cardiff, which is a very important game. That's two top 8 teams playing right there. And then the second game on May 8th is also a very important one between two top 8 teams as well. We have Ulster versus Stormers. And then the following day, May 9th, there were 6 matches played. We kicked off with Bulls versus Zebri, followed by Sharks versus Benetton, and then we had a Welsh derby of Ospreys versus Scarlets, and then after that game, there was a very fun matchup between Leinster and the Lions. That game was followed by Connacht versus Munster, and then the last game of the week was Dragons versus Edinburgh. So let's take a look at the final results of round 17. And so here are all of the results of round 17. Some kind of shocking results here this week. So we kick off round 17 with the Glasgow versus Cardiff matchup. I think Glasgow got their mojo back after going through a bit of a cold spell, kind of losing a few games in a row. So I think, again, Glasgow got their mojo back, beating Cardiff by a score of 40-17. And we're actually going to take a look at the stat sheet here for this game. And the score between the two teams tells you that Glasgow was the stronger, much more dominant team this week. And a good number of these stats show that as well. So, bonus point victory for Glasgow, scoring 6 tries during the course of this game. Glasgow's dominant in possession with 60% possession. Dominant in territory, 59% in territory. Cardiff was put under so much defensive pressure, they ended up having 257 total tackle attempts during the course of this game. Now, what really hurt Cardiff during this game is the fact that they missed 51 of their tackles. Glasgow converted 51 missed tackles into 15 clean breaks, 638 meters gained as well. Absolutely massive offensive stats there for Glasgow. Now, Cardiff was also able to get a lot of running rugby in, but they weren't able to be as clinical, as efficient, and, they weren't able to convert it into points scored like Glasgow was. Cardiff had 10 clean breaks on 29 missed tackles. It's really good conversion rate right there, with 458 meters gained. Again, these are really strong numbers for Cardiff, but they didn't have that clinical finishing like Glasgow did this particular week. So, strong bonus point victory for Glasgow. A lot of good momentum for Glasgow heading into the final round of the regular season. And we also see Glasgow sitting on top of the leaderboard again after this particular result. So let's go back to the scorecard here. And the next game on the menu was a really fun, really exciting game between Ulster and Stormers, where it ended up being a tie, 38-38. We're going to look at that stat sheet here. And again, so this was a really exciting game, very dramatic game. There were yellow cards, there was a red card. Stormers actually were able to earn a penalty try in the 80th minute to come back and seal a tie for this week. So both teams get a couple points for the tie, and then they both get bonus points, scoring bonus points for both teams scoring 4 or more tries. Very physical game between the two teams here. Possession plus territory, slight advantage possession-wise for Stormers. A little bit more of an advantage territory-wise. Hugely physical game between the two teams here. Ulster had 227 tackle attempts, Stormers 193. A lot of back and forth between the two teams here. Both teams gained a tremendous amount of meters during the course of this game. Ulster 486 meters gained, Stormers 449. I mean, talk about a running game of rugby, right? Now, I guess Stormers had kind of a bend and only slightly breaking defensive scheme this week, because the only real stat that is really dominated by one team or the other this week is clean breaks. Ulster did a great job converting missed tackles into clean breaks this week. Ulster 14 clean breaks on 36 missed tackles for the Stormers, whereas Stormers only had 7 clean breaks on 31 missed tackles. So, I guess a bend, but only slightly breaking again defensive scheme for the Stormers this week. Ulster was not able to take advantage of that clean break dominance this week. But anyway, super fun game to watch, super high-scoring game to watch. It's, again, really great game. Rare tie between two teams, but, better than losing the game at the very least. So both of these teams will look to continue the strong effort in round 18. Stormers are pretty much solidified into the playoffs, and then Ulster obviously will have to keep this type of performance next week to guarantee, or do their best to guarantee, a spot in the final 8. So let's go back to the scorecard. The following game was a very strong performance by the Bulls. The Bulls put in a heck of a shift against Zebre Parma. The Bulls dominated this game, winning this game by a score of 54-19 over Zebre Parma. Bonus point victory for the Bulls. This had the Bulls jump up into the top 4 of the league, actually, and this win solidified and guarantees the Bulls will be in the playoffs in a couple rounds. The next game was another strong performance by a South African team. We see the Sharks absolutely dominating Benetton, winning by a score of 46-7. Again, another dominant performance by one of the South Africa teams. Bonus point victory for the Sharks. Sharks and Benetton can't make it into the playoffs, but there still is a point of professional pride that they have to take into consideration. Also, you don't want to misrepresent the fans as well. You want to make sure the fans are getting their money's worth if they're going to the game. So, Sharks, very strong game, giving the fans their money's worth. And then we'll see if Benetton can bounce back and win the last game of the season come round 18. And so, first game, well, not the first game, but the next game after the Sharks-Benetton game is the Welsh Derby of Ospreys versus Scarlets. This ended up being a fairly close game. We'll go to the stat sheet here for this particular game. This ended up being a close game. It wasn't really looking like that in the first half, and then Scarlets came back in the second half, and, it was a pretty close game. Physical game between the two teams, as you can imagine. Nice Welsh derby, nice derby game. But the only real thing we need to talk about on this entire stat sheet is simply penalties conceded. The gigantic difference between the two teams in penalties conceded, in my mind, is the only reason for the Ospreys getting the victory. Now, Ospreys could have gotten the victory if Scarlets had less penalties anyway, but when Scarlets give up 19 penalties during the course of the game and Ospreys only give up 4, that is a massive difference between the two, and to be honest with you, I'm surprised that Scarlets only lost by 7 points, giving up that number of penalties during the course of this game. Again, all other stats are fine and dandy, but the only one that mattered this particular game was penalties conceded. Scarlets gave up way too many penalties this game, and Ospreys took advantage by winning the game. So now let's jump back over to the stat sheet again, or the scorecard again. And the next game in round 17, I thought was going to be a much closer game, the Leinster versus Lions game. I was really excited to see this one. Leinster A had been playing really well. They're going to the Champions Cup finals, so they have a lot of momentum coming into this game. And Lions were one of the hottest teams in the URC coming into this game, having won, I think it was 6 in a row. But Leinster ended up giving it to the Lions pretty well. And Leinster secured a very strong bonus point victory by a score of 31-7 over the Lions. We're actually going to look at this stat sheet here. And this score line, is probably a little bit misleading just because Leinster did the bulk of this scoring in the last 10 minutes. The score was 14-7 up until the 70th minute, and then the constant Leinster pressure and just the big defensive effort that the Lions put in kind of wore the Lions out by the 70th minute. And then with that constant Leinster offensive pressure, they were able to break through the dam that was the Lions' defensive wall, and then ended up just blowing the score out and scoring 3 tries literally in the last 10 minutes. So again, we'll just run through this stuff real quick. So we see bonus point victory for Leinster here, 5 tries scored for Leinster. Leinster dominant in possession plus territory. Very physical game. A lot of tackles made by both teams. Lions ended up having to attempt over 200 tackles during the course of this game. It's a lot of tackles to be making against Leinster, especially with the high-tempo offense that Leinster likes to play with. We can see Leinster was the team with the majority of possession, with also making a significant amount of meters gained during the course of this game as well. They almost literally doubled the Lions' meters gained during the course of this game. 564 meters gained for Leinster, 283 for the Lions. Just absolutely just hammering against the Lions. A lot of meters gained, a lot of, again, Lions having to recover and trying not to give up the score. But, again, Leinster, really, really strong team, really, really great team. They were able to break it open. You can see with clean breaks as well, Leinster ended up having a large number of clean breaks, 14 clean breaks, kind of emphasizing just that offensive pressure and presence and front football that Leinster was having during the entire course of this game. So, strong victory for Leinster this week. Bonus point victory. This helped Leinster secure their playoff spot. So come round 18, we know Leinster is definitely in. Lions, on the other hand, have to at least win come round 18 to give themselves a fighting chance of making it into the playoffs. So let's look back at the scorecard one last time, and we'll go through the last 2 games. And so after the Leinster Lions game, we have a good game between the Dragons and Edinburgh, where Edinburgh won by a score of 24-15 over the Dragons. Again, neither of these teams are eligible to make the playoff picture here, but again, there is an element of being respectful to the fans who are paying their hard-earned money for tickets, taking time out of their day to go watch the game, to give the fans a show. So it's good to see that both teams are putting in the effort, trying to put points on the board, trying to score. But again, Edinburgh ended up getting the victory this week over the Dragons by a score of 24-15. And the last game of round 17, bit of a surprise to me that it was so lopsided because of just how well Munster had been playing the two previous rounds. But this was a good bounce-back game for Connacht here. Connacht beat Munster by a score of 26-7, which helps Connacht stay in the race for the top 8, and then this now puts Munster in a slightly precarious position because if Munster loses next week, they're probably not going to be making it into the top 8. So that is all the games and all the results for round 17. Now let's look at the live ladder. On the left side of the screen, we have the ladder after round 16. On the right side of the screen, we have the ladder after round 17. So, top 4 teams in the league right now have secured their playoff spots. Now, who will be the number 1 seed? Who knows? Maybe Leinster, maybe Stormers, maybe Glasgow will hold on to it. We'll see. But top 4 seeds are guaranteed to be in the playoffs, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are still in the playoff hunt. So Connacht is still very much in the playoff hunt. If Lions lose their game and Connacht gets a bonus point victory and everybody else ends up winning their games as well, Lions are going to be out. So, it's very, very important games coming into round 18. So, we see Lions, Munster, Cardiff all dropping down this week. And Leinster and Bulls are the biggest riser this week. Ulster, Connacht staying the same. And then, 10 and below, they are no hopes for making the playoffs, unfortunately for them. So it's all about, point of pride at this point in time. But we do see the Scarlets swapping spots with the Dragons after the results of this round. So this is the live ladder, live table. Let's take a look at the round 18 game schedule. So round 18's game schedule is as follows. May 15th, we will see Cardiff versus Stormers, followed by Edinburgh versus Connacht. And then the last game on May 15th will be Ulster versus Glasgow. All 3 of these games have huge playoff implications for Cardiff, Connacht, and Ulster especially. Those 3 definitely need to win their games to put themselves in the best position to make the final 8. And then the following day, May 16th, there are 5 games going to be played. The first game will be Sharks versus Zebri Parma, followed by Bulls versus Benetton, and then we have Leinster versus the Ospreys, Scarlets versus the Dragons, and then we finish off the week with Munster versus Lions. That is a huge game right there, Munster versus Lions. Whichever team loses that game probably is not going to make the playoff picture. But we'll see. Depends on the other results from the May 15 games. So, lots of important games. Lots of high-stress games to come. This will be a great round of rugby. I'm very excited to watch. So if you made it this far in the video, thanks for sticking around and listening. If you liked the video, please hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe button. And I hope everybody enjoys round 18. and I will see ya for round 18. Have a good one.